I'm really excited to speak. And I can speak and speak for those of you who know me. So I hope this won't be a lot boring. There'll be a lot of interaction, questions. So prepare for questions. But more so just to make your pitching get to the next level. And this is for those who will be pitching, okay? Oh, okay. Sorry. Yeah, so. Oh, okay. I like moving all the way to the back and then coming in front. I'm your typical teacher, but I'll try and restrict myself so that we can communicate. So I was saying, I'm hoping at the end of this session that for those of you who are going to pitch in this big event, that you would actually get to the next level of pitching. I have trained some of you in pitching and presentation, mentored some of you, and I think it's been a good experience. So I don't know if we've managed to sort out the audio. I just wanted us to pay attention on the screen and see one of the pitches that I considered was one of my best. I was fortunate enough to attend a Nosken week in Kigali in 2023. And I had this pitch that literally captured my attention from the beginning to the end. So I might be wrong, but let's just listen and then we try and unpack and see what is good about it. So as they're sorting, let me also just break the silence again and say that a little bit about myself. I used to work with Bernard at the Innovate Now. Bernard, you can wave. I know most people know you at Innovate Now. Then I moved to the UK Kenya Tech Hub. So I'm the country director for the UK Kenya Tech Hub. I've worked with so many startups. So are we ready?
Kwara, founded in 2018, Kenya, fintech.
Good morning, good afternoon. My name is Cynthia. I'm the co-founder and CEO at Kwara, where we're building better retail banking for 1 billion people with credit unions. Credit unions are the financial infrastructure that already exists. It's like the 7-Eleven of financial institutions. There's one in every corner, every village, every city. And they provide financial services to teachers, farmers, traders, making it possible for them to access savings accounts, investment opportunities, and the cheapest credit in the market. They are really good at providing financial services to the unbanked, but they're not good at doing that digitally, and they're not good at doing that at scale. That's because there are no fit-for-purpose digital tools for credit unions, which results in long lead times to provide financial services or expensive capital expenditure as the credit union tries to build it themselves. In Kenya and in Rwanda, we call them SACCOs, Savings and Credit Cooperatives. So we built it, a platform to turn a SACCO into a modern digital bank. The SACCO gets a system of records where they can manage their accounts, their users, do all their reporting in order to be compliant with the regulator. And their members get access to mobile banking for the first time, whether they have a smartphone or a feature phone. And it's working. We have united hundreds of SACCOs onto a single digital platform. We serve over 200,000 members. We've been tripling our revenue year on year. And we now process up to €1 billion on an annualized basis, which is 1% of Kenya's GDP. So just 99% to go. Now that's exciting to us, but what's even more exciting is that our credit unions grow up to 9 times faster than average. Some of them are posting 70% annual growth in members. Others are quadrupling their loan portfolios or doubling their revenue. And with results like that, credit unions are happy to pay us to become the neobank of their users. They license our platform at an annual subscription basis, and then we negotiate a commission based on the volume of transactions on our platform. With every SACCO we sign up as a client, we acquire all their end users at positive economics. And then we expand the value of that user by introducing new products, such as bill pay, airtime, instant loan processing, debit cards, and so on. With this approach, we will hit €100 million in annual revenue with just 4 million users. And the best part is more than half of that value comes from the existing behavior between the user and their SACCO, saving and borrowing. So 4 million users needed to build a $1 billion company. Well, Kenya alone has 12 million credit union users today. And by 2030, there will be 24 million users in Kenya alone. Suddenly, the big dream seems more feasible. Better retail banking for 1 billion people. Today, 1 billion people get their financial services from a credit union. 200 million of them from 5 countries with which we are intimately acquainted with. Quara is built with love by an experienced team based out of the Global South. We have experience from not 1, but 2 unicorn neobanks, and engineering expertise from arguably the best engineering and customer-centric company on earth. So, if you're excited about a capital-efficient way to distribute financial services to 1 billion people, then we would be happy to speak. Thank you.
The presentation. So let's do some reflection on that. I know it's fintech, but we're talking about assistive tech, but pitching is all the same. There are things that are supposed to come out very strongly that would convince anyone who's thinking of investing in your business, make that decision faster. I don't know, just a question in the room. How many of you would be interested to invest in Quara? Was it peer pressure? I saw some of you raised your hand later. I hope it's not peer pressure. But I think you have sort of a rough idea why you want to invest in Quara. There are quite a number of things that were very clear. Okay? If you can enlarge it a bit. All right? So, what is interesting about that pitch is that it was so relatable. We could see the customer she was talking about. It was very relatable to an extent that he had mentioned 7-Eleven. I don't know of you who are familiar with the 7-Eleven, but she had mentioned that and really painted a picture of relatability. So as we're sorting, just another very curious question for you. What do you think? What do you think is, or what do you think a pitch is supposed to do? That pitch presentation. What is a pitch? Let's just start from there. What is a pitch? Anyone, quickly? What is a pitch? I have gifts at the end of this session that I'll be giving out. What is a pitch? Just quickly. What is pitching? Anyone who wants to try? Sorry, I just can't help it but move. So can we have someone with a mic to move?
Yeah, so a pitch is basically selling your idea. The main aim of the pitch is to have people who are willing to partner or invest, start engagement with you. So you need to show the opportunity and get interest so that they begin engaging. That is how I'll put it.
Thank you. I like a number of things that he's mentioned. He's mentioned you need to show. Okay? So if you're writing, just write the word show and not tell. And let's think of the difference. Show and not tell. Are there instances where we tell? Okay, just think about it. And then there are a number of things that are supposed to be shown. Okay? So I always summarize a pitch into 3 parts of showing. What do you need to show? So part 1 is basically, and remember, a lot of this, when he's mentioned about an idea, or whatever stage our businesses are, we are looking at attracting partnerships, investment to build. So a lot of things don't exist. And so basically we are talking about this potential that you need to show. So the potential that we need to show is what I call the product market potential, or rather the product potential. So just show the product potential. And we'll unpack that, the product potential. Show, don't tell. So question becomes, how do we show? The second part is the market potential. So the first one was product potential. The second one is the market potential. And the third is the ability to execute. Okay? Again, we'll unpack. I know most of you always look at slides, so and I'm trying to help you build your own slides as long as you communicate. So actually, a pitch is a communication of value or potential for the business or the company you're trying to put together, or the product. So can move to the next. Now, this is what most of my training I use. And I find it to be very helpful. Especially knowing where you are at and what you need. Okay? And when you're showing potential, there's a last slide called the ask. What do you want? But in the beginning, you need to show what is this thing that you are presenting. So I use like 3 stages of what we call a technology venture growth. It starts with the product. So idea, then you go to prototype, you go to MVP, you go to PMF. I know some people also have BMF, the business market fit, business model fit, sorry, and then you scale. So a typical scenario, most of us tend to have local business model and trying to get it to sort of fall into this pattern. What is a local business model? A local business model is what we call the SME or MSME. It doesn't have the scalability that we are looking at. But remember Henry talking about scalability, which is one of the crucial things that needs to come out. And this is one of those that we will refer to most of the time. So let's now move to the content of what a pitch deck looks like. And here, we'll have a number of assignment, sort of a group discussion. So there's what I consider to be a very crucial part of your presentation that essentially we don't pay attention to, and it's called the hook. Hook. And a hook has some sort of emotional connection with the people in the room. And the one very good example I use is the one for Twiga Foods. How many of you know Twiga Foods? I did some research. Their first presentation, the hook was a picture of a banana, and it's written, "This is a banana." All right? We all know a banana. But you ask yourself, either these people are trying to communicate something that is not that obvious, because you can't have a whole slide with a banana and say, this is a banana. You get what I mean? Others is just how do you quickly connect with the audience? Because you're pitching to people. And I remember, I think a number of you that I've trained, we've had to figure out, what is this hook? What is this hook? It could be in terms of a very interesting scenario or story, but you keep it short. It could be a question, okay? But the most important thing, it has to be compelling enough to create that attachment. Now, I want us to move to the next slide, because this is really not very obvious, but this is where we want to, I want to ask, how many of you will be presenting? How many of you will be pitching? All right? For those of you who will be pitching, I want you to explain to your neighbor your solution. I want you to explain to your neighbor your solution. In a statement, no stories. Okay? And let's find out if the neighbor would have captured what is it that you are providing as a solution. All right? So 1 minute. 1 minute. All right. I believe I really need to move. I really need to. I believe those were enough seconds to actually either understand or not understand, because it has to be a very short statement. So Let's hear from the audience that was spoken to, if actually it did make sense.
We were cut off right at when she wanted to explain what the solution was, but maybe Wilfred, you can.
Okay, but well, Priscilla explained to me that they are their product is targeted at pupils which are hard of hearing or deaf or visually impaired, and the solution provides access to books for this target group.
Visually impaired, and your access to books for the visually impaired. Okay? So, well, let's unpack it, and we'll have an opportunity to unpack it. Does that sound like something important? Very important, okay? So it sounds like something very important. But one thing that probably I would dive deep into and ask, okay? What is that sort of, when you say they lack books, okay? Visually impaired do not have books. There is less and less access to books. So ideally, you're providing this access to books. Now, there's 3 parts of that. We can clearly see there is a visually impaired as your customer, okay? So, visually impaired people, and this is maybe because he's biased, and I'm just saying, I'm looking at myself who really doesn't understand a lot of the visually impaired and have that assumption that, what do you mean? I mean, there's quite a number of things that are already working, okay? I just want to, from a perspective of not someone who's interacted with a lot of visually impaired, I need to see how strong this is a problem, okay? How strong this is a problem. So I think when you paint that picture of how big this is a problem, it always pushes people to actually have this mental picture of how big this is a problem, how important it is. And that's what I'm saying, maybe because he's a bias, and the people in the room are a bit biased, because whenever we talk about these solutions, they have interacted with it for some time, okay?
I think, okay, I think I get what you were actually asking, because if you describe your solution, there has to be numbers, because one thing that really stood out from the Quora pitch is about the numbers. And again, the storytelling part. But for this case, it's always about the numbers and statistics, and they don't lie. And so I think I totally understand what you were talking about. And it was just one statement and a random one at that. Thank you.
I think the most important thing, you see, what I was trying to look at is the structure. The structure of your solution, it has to have, what is it? Okay? What is it? So when you look at that, is it a technology? Let's understand what it is, okay? Let's understand what it is, because sometimes we basically might actually confuse you to be a World Health Organization, or to be the UN who's solving all this world problem through conferences, through policy and convening. We just want to know what it is. Because giving access to books can mean a lot of things. You see what I mean? It can mean you're the Ministry of Education, and ideally, what we are doing is basically facilitating a lot of stakeholders and coming together and bringing in understand. They're also facilitating a number of things in that. So if you can specifically talk about what it is. Now, for that example where we have what they're talking about, it's the world's largest search engine that automatically provides advertisers with potential customer tailored to ad content. So let's rephrase our statement with that structure and see if it makes sense to whoever is going to listen for the second time. So what I want you to do is to pick what it is. Okay, just say what the solution is. Now, you remember what she was talking about, what Kwara was talking about. She mentioned something called fit for purpose. And she mentioned another word called the existing alternative was expensive. All right? So this is what I call value topics. I said it's a communication of value. What is the value? And that's why you see values are there in green. So what value does it, you've mentioned about access, but access can still be unpacked because access is such a wide and broad word, okay? Access could actually mean they do not exist, okay? Or access could mean it's expensive. Okay? Access could mean all these adjectives. So what I want us to do is think of the benefits and not the features. We'll get there. So for solution has to have, this is someone who's visually impaired. I need to have this mental picture. They're probably most of them are not learned because either they do not, the books do not exist. Okay? So that is sort of an existence problem. And then, if the books are there and they are very expensive, accessibility is still hampered, but it is actually an affordability problem. So unpack that. So when you look at the engine, automatically. So the word automatically is that there was some automation in that machine that automatically, and that's where algorithm comes. So I won't point to the algorithm, but what does the algorithm do in terms of benefit? But what the biggest benefit for the customer there is increase click-through and conversion rate. The key word there is increase. And those are some of the things that I call the adjective or the values. So figure out the values and then for whom. So for whom you can actually quickly pick that it's for visually impaired. Okay? Is it children? Is it grown-ups? Is it, you get what I mean? Try and be as specific as possible. Does that make sense? Are we together? Let's give it a shot. And hopefully people will understand it much better. All right. So I'll use a different group. 1 minute, let's give it a shot. I'll go to one of the tables and see if it makes sense. No, everybody is doing this, then I'll pick a table. All right. If it helps, just write it down and read. If it helps, write it down and read. I think when you write it down is when you discover probably there are a number of things that you need to add. All right. So I see the discussions are underway. I'll give you 30 seconds to conclude, and then I'll give the mic to one of the. All right. So let's listen. Let's listen to one solution that has followed that structure and it's written down. And we will be the judges, okay?
Okay, my solution called the EpiGuard is a medical grade first aid device to prevent oral injuries for seizure-prone patients. It is connected to an app that automatically and in real time records each seizure that happens, thus allowing easy monitoring of the patient's seizures.
Have we captured that? Or it's still confusing? Have we captured that? Can anyone repeat what the solution is? At least you've heard about seizure patient, right? Right? What else have you heard? App. What else have you heard? All right, so they've had an app and seizure patient. So everything else has gone. So I will try and unpack that solution. So let me just go through it and then we see. What she said is, it's called EpiGuard, and it's a medical grade first aid. Medical grade first aid. Do you think that's where the complication comes? Or we understand that bit? Then, device, it's actually a device. It's a medical grade first aid device to prevent oral injuries. So there's the bit of prevention. So basically, what you're trying to, if we reverse this scenario, okay, is that the seizure or people who suffer from seizure, they do have a lot of oral injuries. And we are preventing them through this device. It's a device. And actually, sometimes you just need to call it a device. Before now, we actually unpack whether it's, of course, those questions will come. But for me, if I was in your shoes, I would probably just say people or seizure, those who suffer from seizures, they do have a lot of injuries, oral injuries. So we are developing a device that prevents the occurrence of these oral injuries, of this. You get what I mean? It's just a very straightforward kind of, and then I go ahead and unpack how big the problem is. And the problem is, you can imagine how severe. You can actually pick on how many people have actually had these oral injuries, and you can paint a picture of how big this problem is by just giving us sort of a mental picture of what this means. It could mean life and death for many people, okay? And then now, when you paint a picture of this individual, you extrapolate and show us the market. That is how this plays. And then now I can figure, okay, there's an individual person we are trying to solve their problem, but this individual person represent this number of people. Are we together? So, in terms of your value topics, basically we are picking the word prevent or reduce the occurrence. Because you can talk about prevention, you can talk about reduction of the oral injuries, and what that means is that there's actually a benefit that we are attaching this device to. So that benefit is understood across. Like already we know that these people suffer from oral injuries. So how do we prevent? How do we reduce? Are we together? Yes. Before we even now go to the features, now, the question about the features is more tied to the product. This is actually tied, what we call a solution is basically explaining to a child what you're trying to do, as opposed to explaining to a medical expert, explaining to an AT expert. Are we together? Just clear value, which is prevention, clear customer, who is a seizure patient or someone who's suffering from seizure, and what does it do for them? Are we together? Does that make sense? So we can quickly move to the next. Now, the reason why I spent a lot of time there is because I was doing a reverse. Now, if you do not understand the problem very well, you won't figure out the solution. You always need to start with the problem. So I need to paint a picture of who is suffering from that problem and how big that problem is. So when I figure out the problem solution fit, a big part of my presentation would have been sorted. Now, remember Kwara, she based her first presentation on unpacking circles. What existed before as a problem, or what existed as an alternative solution? How have they been solving, and how inefficient it was? Okay, so I actually picked that this assignment for really unpacking the solution to give you an overview that without the first two slides, the slide that shows who's suffering from that problem and how you're trying to fix their problem, those two slides are very crucial in people paying attention or not paying attention. Are we together? All right. So when these are just random statements that I picked that are very important. List the benefits, not features. Investors want to know what value you create for your customer. Does that make sense?
You list the benefits as you're talking about your solution.
Talking about your solution. You don't put the features. Are we together? What's the difference between a benefit and a feature? Anyone? All right. Someone to pass the mic. All right, if you can just shout. Okay. Yeah, that's a good one. Okay. Okay. So let me pick. Thank you for that example. But let me pick something you're working with right now. Most of you have your laptops open. Okay? So when you go and just read on your laptop. I don't know if they have the sticker of Core 2, of Core. What's the Intel inside? This one. Intel Core. Yeah, it's written Intel Core. Do you have a rough idea of what that means? No. No idea. Any other laptop which has some fancy writing on it or sticker? Core i7. Do you have an idea what that means? All right? So that's a feature. But essentially what they are telling you, it has some amazing processing speed, right? Now, when you now look at even the feature, they'll tell you the battery lasts for a whole day. Now, that's a benefit. But what's the feature? Lithium ion battery. You get what I mean? Yes, that's what we are talking about. If, let's say, for instance, your phone, how many have 100 megapixel? I don't know where we have reached with the megapixels. So, how many bought their phones because of the megapixels? Okay, a lot of one person, and that's what we call in that group. We call them either innovator or early adopters. They understand tech for tech, but they do not understand solution. Now let's figure out those who understand solution. How many bought their phone because of how clear the picture are when you use them to take? How many? Exactly. So most people understand things in terms of solution and tangible benefit, not features. Are we together? But when you're talking to technical people, they will always ask you about the feature. So you've promised us these benefits. What is the engine behind the benefit? You get what I mean? And then they'll tell you the engine that powers the camera. Are we together? So that's the feature. All right? And then, if you can't tie features to benefit for your customer, perhaps you have a solution in search of a problem. So most of us, because we are tech people, we tend to feel that whatever we build has to be a solution. and we search for the problem. But it's the other way around. We need to be people who really unpack the problem. Like when you saw Kwara mention, she's someone who's interacted with circles, someone who understands the inefficiencies of circles, and even gives up this sort of mental picture of what circles is like. You get what I mean? So if you have that, really is important. We talked about market potential. She basically mentioned about the market size. And here is where I know we always have a lot of questions. How do you estimate? How do you come up with the total addressable market, the TAM, the SAM? The SAM is the serviceable, the SOM is the serviceable obtainable market. We also have the so there's the TAM, the SAM, and the SOM, right? Are we together? So all that requires your input, and you need to find out, because you are the innovator, and you need to teach those who are in the room. That means you've done your homework in terms of how many people are suffering, estimation. So it means that you're going to dig deeper in terms of research papers, in terms of really getting those estimations. But what we are saying is that the investors are not keen to actually, let's say, get or crucify you of accuracy of the data. But what you need to do is, if it's data that you've actually gotten from sort of a paper or research paper, it's worth noting. Or if it's done by World Bank or World Health Organization, all those, they have quite a number of information. In terms of accuracy, again, we can have a number of things to discuss about, but at least that kind of outline what is the potential of this market. Okay, because remember, we are also trying to convince them in investing in the market itself. So when it comes to the next, so you have done your problem statement or your problem slide, your solution slide, and then your market potential slide. Now, there's somewhere where someone needs to understand the product a bit. So the product slide is usually in form of a demo, or in form of, depending with where you have actually read. Is it a demo? But a lot of, like, you look at Quora, they did not do a product demo. They just had some screenshots on whatever product they were using. So ideally, you can have even screenshots to just show if it's an app. If it's an actual physical product, just take a photo or something, because it gives the people who are listening some idea of what the product is. A lot of them, if they don't see, they will ask you, so what exactly is it? Because if it's something you're talking about more portable, they need to see how portable it is. Now, there's another elephant in the room that is quite important: unit economics. How many of you understand unit economics? Anyone? There's one gentleman at the back who understands unit economics. Can you just please shout of what does that mean? Oh, there's mic. Yeah, there's the mic there.
The cost per your product, what it costs, or everything about a unit of your product. Yeah, basically.
All right. So there's what we call the cost. Oh, there's someone else.
So unit economics is the cost per product manufacturing in manufacturing. But if you go in economies of scale, it means when I'm producing out of products, the cost, will it reduce? What? So that's why we call economies of scale.
Okay.
Yeah.
So unit economics really underpins your scalability. Are we together? Why it's important? It's because how you show scalability. So we need to understand what our cost units or cost per unit. Now, in terms of production, of course, if it's a physical thing, you basically are saying there are numbers that will make economic sense if you produce. And that's what the gentleman has mentioned as having economies of scale. So at scale, you basically, your unit will cancel out and make you profitable. So profitability is also key when it comes to this. So that is very crucial, just to show that the business I am in is actually not a charity, but a business that have factored in units, both from a revenue perspective and from a cost perspective. Now, if they actually have economies of scale, it means I can actually put in money to actually get you to profitability, and you can give me that return on investment. Now, one other thing about this unit economics, as it were, is that there are units that sometimes are hard to scale. And I'll give you an example. There are units that you won't scale because either they take a lot of money, so the cost unit is so high, and for you to get to, let's say, economies of scale, you'll require such huge numbers. And those huge numbers, you might not have the total addressable market that can actually make economic sense. Are we together? Because remember, for you to show your total addressable market, your sum and sum, is basically giving an indication. When I consider these unit economics, do they make sense if I start building or if I start selling this product or you start producing this product for these numbers? So there's that interaction with the numbers. Now, there's the business model, and the business model is basically how you make money. So you need to unpack in terms of the business model, how you make money. How do you make money? Now, when it comes to a tech business, how you make money matters a lot because, again, it underpins your revenue, or rather your price per unit. So it really also affects your unit economics, how to get to profitability. But business model has to be scalable and has to be repeatable. Let's say you're selling units. So how much is a unit? Now, for scalability and repeatability, you'll find that there's something called product market fit. How many of you know of product market fit? So product market fit, if you can write down, is given by these three metrics. One is, what is your churn rate? Okay, churn rate. Churn rate has to be less than 1%. Churn rate is how many people are falling off your product. You get what I mean? So let's say I have experienced your product and I no longer want it, so I drop off. So churn rate is the people who are dropping off. Then referral rate has to be more than 50%, and stickiness, or actually the return customers, have to be 50%. More than 50%. So let's see how this plays in the actual bit of investment. Is that if at all I have a product, and we've talked about features and solution, okay? So there are people who are called early adopters as customers and innovators in the curve. So early adopters and innovators will buy solution for the sake of technology. They will actually not buy the solution. They will buy the product for technology's sake. So you can actually push for your numbers. We know there's a lot of growth strategy we can employ. But, and so if I'm an investor, I'll come and ask you, so what does your growth look like? And what do you need the most? And then you say, I need to grow my business. Growing your business actually means getting more customers, okay? So you can actually pay to acquire customers, but you can't pay to keep customers. Are we together? And that's why product market fit becomes such an important thing for an investor to see that people are returning because there's a real solution. It's just not because you're paying for them to get that product. Are we together? So you can actually buy customers. That's what you're saying, but you can't keep them. The only thing that makes you keep customers is that they find the solution valuable. And that means if they find your solution valuable, they will refer others. And so that's another indicator that you're actually providing a solution and not just selling a product. All right. Then I know there's competition, but when it comes to tech, there is something that is very crucial that you need to outline. Tech business Yeah, I'm just about to finish because those are the slides. So, when it comes to competition, I know most of you always have this quadrant, or rather, most of you have a checklist. Have you seen the competition analysis? Have we all seen the competition analysis? Trust you me, your competitor has also has not ticked on your side. The same way, when you outlined competition, you have not ticked on his side. Are we getting what I'm saying? This is what I'm saying. I don't know how to explain, but so let's say they are my competitors, all right? So I create a box and I tick all of my boxes in terms of the values: reliable, inexpensive, affordable, everything. And my competitors, it's X, 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 X. On their slides, they have also X'd me on all of them and also put theirs as, that's exactly what I mean. See, when it comes to competition, we have to think critically of what is that thing that is giving you an unfair advantage. A lot of it is usually on the tech side. Sometimes we call it the business, the secret, the trade secret. Now, the trade secret, you're not supposed to show it if at all is going to be copied. And I think Henry talked about IP and something that gives you a competitive edge. A lot of startups have to have this model of being a monopoly from a tech side, that there's something that is really, really not putting you at a very sort of competition at a level competition so that you just improve efficiencies, you say you're selling cheaply and all that. You basically have to stand out in terms of that tech. And that's why we incubate and you go to the lab and think about what is this thing that is going to sort people out. So that unfair advantage, when an investor see, and it can be in form of IP, okay, it can be in form of you saying that I have increased the number by 5, or I have reduced that occurrence by almost 100%. And then when they say, how? You say, that is my trade secret. It's based on an algorithm or it's based on something. But I have worked that bit. You get what I mean? Yes. So with that, it can actually make you scalable. Otherwise, when you're competing on pricing, not unless there's something that is cutting down on cost that will make your pricing competitively unfair. Okay? Are we together? But all these things of ticking, it's so easy for someone to come and tick and all that. All right. I want, when you talk about traction, I think Henry had mentioned about traction, how important it is. So you need to have traction slide. You saw Quora having that. And then, of course, the last, team. I gave you a summary of 3 things. So team and your probably growth strategy is the one that shows the ability to execute. Henry had mentioned about how important a team structure should look like and balancing who is bringing what. So if you're all from tech background, it's so hard as an investor to actually to see how dynamic the team is to actually achieving the implementation of whatever you're telling us. So execution, with proper execution, even a bad idea can get somewhere. Okay? Are we together? With proper execution, a bad idea can get somewhere. But a good idea with poor execution is not going to get anywhere. So execution is the most important. And we need to show how we are serious about execution. And how we are serious about execution is seen the type of team you are fronting to take this to the next level. The others will actually look at what is your growth strategy? And looking at your growth plan, what does that look like? And so it means I am actually going to fund growth. If I'm funding growth, there's a team that is seriously thinking about this growth, and there's a strategy or there's a roadmap that underpins that this growth is going to be achieved within a specific time. So it's a function of time and a function of also revenue. So at what stage are we going to have the revenue? So I'll stop there. So all this need to be factored in a slide. And when you look at Quora, they managed to bring it out in a story. So we can move to the next one. So I just picked what Quora said. And I would want to challenge you to actually do your write-up. This is a narrative, and you need to practice with your slides. So this is Quora's narrative, word by word. And you need to internalize the slides so that it becomes, the storytelling part of it becomes such an important bit. I have seen pitches where someone opens the first slide and reads for us the slide and moves to the next with no conviction. The only way you can actually pitch and bring out a lot of conviction if you internalize and actually know your stuff. Know what the unit economics is. Know what your competitive advantage is. Know your competition. know all this, your team. And I like the way she brought out the team. She brought out the team in a very interesting manner. And I think you can actually see there's that. Quora is built with love, an experienced team based out of the global south. We have experienced not one, but 2 unicorn neobanks. Okay? So it was such a narrative. And this is now the storytelling bit that all of us need to figure out. We need to do a write-up on all our product. And it has to be as brief as this, and time yourself, because this is every word you're going to speak and say. So the number one part, of course, the first paragraph is about trying to paint a picture of what the problem is and what the solution is. That's the first paragraph. Using 7-Eleven or financial institution, there's one in every corner, every village, so remember what I told you? Painting a picture of how the problem is. Who is this person who owns that problem? Who is this person who owns that problem? Paint a picture. When I'm seated, I will be convinced that actually you know people with seizure more than anyone in the room. And I won't start doubting, because the only thing that will make me doubt if I don't get that sort of mental picture. And then I will start asking myself, is this the right person to actually invest in? Are we together? And then, of course, the second part is basically painting how a number of things, but the market as well as the traction. So you can see we have united hundreds of circles into a single digit platform. We have served over 200,000 members. That is traction. How many people have you served? How many people have you onboarded? So that's very key. We have been tripling our revenue year on year. So that's a revenue traction that is quite important. We have now processed up to €1 billion in annualized basis, which is 1% of the Kenya's GDP. So just 99% to go. And you see that now that becomes a storytelling thing. Now the last bit you can see, the third paragraph is about the unit economics. She says that with every circle we have signed up client, we've acquired all their end users at positive economics. So ideally, there are 3 costs when you're talking about a startup. There's the cost of production, what you pay for development, what you pay to develop the product. There's now the cost of acquiring a customer, CAC. And now there's the cost of operation, okay? So when it comes to profitability, your revenue units compared to this, so the lifetime value of your customer, okay, has to be positive when you're talking about customer acquisition cost, okay? So basically they have acquired customer at positive economics compared to the other costs. And then, of course, like I've said, and we've expanded value other users by introducing new products such as bill pay, airtime, and all that. So I'll stop there, but this should be your narrative. So we need to write our narrative. I do want to go slide by slide, but just highlighting the most important things when it comes to pitching. But this narrative and combining it with slides. You saw how her slides were very minimalistic with just highlighting numbers. Basically, that would get you some conversation or should get you some conversation. So any questions? Questions? All right. So thank you and all the best with your slides. You can do the write-up and get someone to listen to and time you as you're presenting. If you actually do this and present it to your colleagues during the day of pitching, you'll be very comfortable because you'd have timed, you'd have known, you won't veer off script, you know exactly what to say and how to say. So practice, 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 but most importantly, draft the narration based on your slides, based on your numbers, and do a presentation to your colleagues. All right. I don't know where Linda is, but thank you so much for this opportunity.